Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Joshua, and this is part 2 of my Haunted Island tour in Animal Crossing. If you have not watched part 1 of this tour, I will leave a link to that video in the description. And again, I will have to include a disclaimer here because there is some blood and gore on this island. If that's something you're not comfortable with, I would probably advise that you not watch this video. Alright, so to begin this second half of my tour, we are beginning with an ode classic. Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th is one of the most well-known horror franchises of all time and was created by Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham in 1980. So it felt obvious that this area had to be built around the campsite, and a friend was so very kind enough to send me this sign. I think she got this from Pocket Camp, but it was a perfect intro to this area, which is the campsite themed area of my island. Down below we have a little party area going on over here, where the Camp Crystal Lake counselors were partying it up, having some barbecue, having some beers, and dare I say, littering. Now, I never went to summer camp as a kid. I did watch Bug Juice on the Disney Channel back in the day, so I feel like I kinda did in a way. Does anyone else remember that show?
Bug juice, real kids, making friends, having fun on Bug Juice.
Just me? Gotcha. Okay, so to fit my Camp Crystal Lake area, I really needed a cabin. So I chose to build my own little cabin here by using the backside of the climbing walls as cabin walls. And yes, it wouldn't be Friday the 13th without some carnage. And as all F13 fans know, if 2 camp counselors chose to get it on, you were assured to die a gory death. And over here on this end of Camp Crystal Lake, I created a little hidden area in the woods. And up this pathway, you will find Jason's shrine to his mother, Pamela Voorhees.
Make them remember me, Jason. Make them remember.
As you can see, I created a custom design of Mrs. Voorhees and surrounded her with candles. It's a scene fit for a legendary killer.
Don't let her get away, Mommy. Don't let her live.
I won't, Jason. I won't.
Okay, so up these stairs and around the corner, we will find the next area I would love to show you. This area is probably the biggest on my island, and it's devoted to a folk horror film that came out in 2019. This is my tribute to Midsommar. Midsommar was directed by Ari Aster and follows a group of friends who travel to a midsummer festival and come to realize that everything about their ideal vacation is made up of the stuff of nightmares and a whole lot of disturbing moments. You get the picture. When I was coming up with all of the films that I wanted to pay tribute to, Midsommar was actually one of the easiest choices because Animal Crossing provided me with so many ideas that correlate with the look and feel of the movie. So to begin, we'll start with this area here. Gulliver was so generous enough to reward me with the South Pole that I'm now using at the center of this scene. I used the South Pole to emulate the May Po dancing that determined who would ultimately become the May Queen, in such a way that they would best illustrate the traditional dance sequence. Over here on the left, you can see that I used the spooky carriage customized in white as the carriage used to transport the May Queen after she's been crowned. This pathway then leads up to where I designed the final dinner scene further down the road. But before we get to that point, there are a few other areas I would like to show you along the way. The first is that disturbing cliff scene from the film. This is the closest thing to a cliff that I had in this area, so I placed 2 custom designed outfits atop the cliff with the bloody rock below. Overall, I feel the scene is well depicted and gets its point across. Let's move on to this next area where I chose to lightly recreate the temple area, where we also find the commune's sacred runic text. Now a little down the way, we will come upon the ancestral tree with a warning for whoever should even consider urinating here, for they shall pay dearly for it. Am I right, Mark?
I just had to pee. I didn't know it was special.
I actually had a laugh about this area because I felt it was necessary considering how dark Midsummer is and how dark this theme ultimately became in the end. So adding a little levity to the situation, I think, helps a little bit. And over here on this side, you will find a small reference to the scene in the film where the group took psychedelic mushrooms upon first arriving at the commune. And now we come to the final dinner scene in Midsummer. As you can see, I surrounded the area with flowers and used wedding tables and custom outfits to set the scene. I found this great Maid Queen custom designed dress and placed it at the head of the table with the flashy flower sign set behind it to give the Maid Queen more distinction. And finally, we have to go back to the start for the final Midsummer area. And here we find the setting of the Yellow House sacrifice. Someone recommended that I add a second profile to my island to get this yellow tint, which I think makes a really great fit for the Yellow House. And outside of the Yellow House, I placed the bingo wheel, which represents the lottery system used by the commune to choose people to sacrifice. And inside, we find the infamous bear scene and the site of these sacrifices. I placed haystacks, scarecrows, and of course, a stuffed bear to best depict that final shocking moment in Midsummer. And now we move on to the next area, which is back by Camp Crystal Lake, which is where we'll find the Black Hills Forest, which is the setting for the mother of all found footage horror films, The Blair Witch Project. The Blair Witch Project was released in 1999 and was directed by Eduardo Chavez and Daniel Myrick. The found footage film tells the story of 3 student filmmakers who go missing while filming a documentary about a local legend known as the Blair Witch. I wanted to make the woods look as creepy as possible, so I felt the barbed wire fence would be a nice touch along with the occasional black flower and random tree branch. And toward the center of the woods, I of course had to leave a camcorder to represent the found footage, with a trace of some blood for that little extra Blair Witch effect. So with this area, I chose to tie it together with my house, which is actually up this hill. This hill and pathway toward my house has a gothic vibe inspired by one of my favorite horror television shows of all time, which I'll discuss a little later. Overall, I wanted to give the outside of my home a bit of a witchy vibe, similar to that of the final scene in the Blair Witch Project. And to accentuate this vibe, I added pine trees, a dark tower, scarecrows, weeds, and just as many creepy things as possible to set that tone. So now let's head inside to see the other part to my Blair Witch theme, which can be found in the main room of my house. Welcome to my home. So straight away, of course, you'll notice a bonfire surrounded by 4 dolls in the middle of some sort of ritual. I originally wanted the cauldron to be the centerpiece of this area, but the dolls would just not be centered around all 4 sides of the cauldron, so I chose to use the bonfire instead for my own sanity because it was driving me absolutely nuts. But it's okay, it worked out in the end. The wallpaper in this room is Modi wallpaper. Yes, it's actually called Modi wallpaper, and I got it from Wisp. I was a little pissed when I first got it, I have to admit, but it actually fits this theme quite perfectly, so can't complain too much. I used the cloud flooring for this fog effect, and what's especially great about the cloud flooring is that it allowed me to layer it with a custom wood flooring that fits the aesthetic of this room quite nicely. I then decorated the area with as much rustic themed furniture and decor as I could possibly find to fit that Blair Witch vibe, and in the corner I added the anatomical model, which is a callback to that final terrifying scene in the Blair Witch Project that we all know and love so much. Okay, so let's move on to the next room, shall we? And let's start with this room over here because this room actually doesn't follow any particular theme. This is the island surveillance room. When I got this surveillance TV wallpaper, I just had to use it. It's super creepy, and the thought of a doll watching over your every move is terrifying, isn't it? I mean, it is to me anyway. This room is simple, it's creepy, it gives me the effing chills, man. And overall, I wanted to make use of this wallpaper, which is pretty great, so here you have it. Okay, so let's head back to the living room. And as you've noticed, this house is not solely devoted to the Blair Witch, as the other rooms have their own devotions, and we will continue with this one right here. Welcome to the Slaughterhouse, the room dedicated to the 1974 slasher film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed by Tobe Hooper. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre follows two siblings and three of their friends who are on their way to visit their grandfather's grave in Texas and ultimately fall prey to a family of cannibalistic psychopaths. So, as you probably noticed, there is a whole lot going on in this room. But first, we must acknowledge Leatherface himself. I was able to get this great custom design outfit for him and added this canvas of him right here. And at the center, we have an outdoor table that I redressed as a butcher's table, which of course holds one of his victims. The wheelchair is a callback to the original film, as there was a character named Franklin who used a wheelchair and unfortunately met a grisly demise. I used the freezer as a meat locker and placed smokers around the room because, well, cannibalism. It is what it is. This is probably the most gruesome area on the entire island, and I felt that it had to be that way because this is a slaughterhouse after all. Blood was spilt here, and Leatherface is one of the most brutal killers of all time. Okay, let's make a change in scenery, shall we? We'll move on to this room over here. Welcome to Doylestown, Pennsylvania, an area dedicated to Signs, a science fiction horror film directed by M. Night Shyamalan in 2002. The film follows Graham Hess, a former priest, and his family as they navigate the presence of suspicious crop circles and escalating otherworldly events that ultimately shake the foundation of the world they know and the faith Graham desperately tries to hold on to. So this area was a no-brainer for me given the items that the game provided me with. Most notably, the crop circle flooring and the UFO DIY provided by Celeste. This room is actually inspired by an earlier scene in the film when farmer Graham Hess is drawn to his cornfield at night by his barking German Shepherd. This is when he first comes into contact with something not of this world. So I used cacao trees as corn stalks and placed an alien canvas behind them to emulate this scene in the movie. I also used one of the toy dogs whose attention is directed toward the mysterious stranger in the field. Now, one of my favorite moments in Signs is when Graham comes home to find his family wearing tinfoil hats in an attempt to thwart their minds from being read by their new alien neighbors. So, I placed a soft serve hat on a wooden barrel to pay homage to this scene. So there you have it, this is my tribute to Signs, which is one of my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movies, and I was happy to make it part of my island. Now we go upstairs, and this area is upstairs because this room is inspired by what I consider to be one of the greatest horror films of all time. Yes, this is my tribute to The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin in 1973. The Exorcist follows actress Chris McNeil and her daughter Reagan, who begins to exhibit unusual behavior which leaves doctors puzzled and with no answers. Desperate for help, Chris turns to Father Karras, who investigates Reagan's condition and persuades the church to assign a priest to perform an exorcism. This sets the stage for the ultimate battle of good versus evil. Welcome to Reagan's room. So firstly, I really wanted to give this room a look of childhood innocence, contrasting sharply with that sinister presence of the devil himself. So when I got Luna's bed, I instantly knew that this would be the bed I would use for this scene. I placed a canvas of a possessed Reagan over the headboard to make her the focus of the room. This is accentuated by the presence of both priest custom outfits, which are situated around Reagan's bed as they perform the exorcism. I also wanted to add a little more color to this scene, so I playfully added some custom vomit on the floor here as a reference to that projectile vomit scene we all remember so fondly. Alright, so now we come to the final part of my island, and it actually lies in the basement, so let's head on down. And down in the dark depths of my basement we will find the Crypt Keeper himself, because this area is dedicated to the horror anthology series Tales from the Crypt that aired on HBO from 1989 to 1996. Based on a comic book series of the same name, Tales from the Crypt featured an assortment of horrific tales destined to keep you up at night and some that you could never forget. So, as you've probably guessed, this show sparked my interest in anything horror related when I was a kid. And while I technically wasn't allowed to watch this show as a kid, I would always find a way because Tales from the Crypt was like nothing else you could find on TV then and still to this day. Given that my island is a collection of different stories and figures in horror cinema, I thought it best to add the Crypt Keeper to act as host and storyteller of my island. In doing this, I was able to make use of the TV camera and director's chair. Behind this, I placed a table with coffee and fruit to act as craft services, along with a vanity with a lamp to act as hair and makeup. I was really hoping to add a casket to this area, but the Halloween event didn't provide me with such, so I had to settle for the Western style stone instead. It's not as effective, but it still gets the job done. I'm sure the Crypt Keeper would approve, regardless.
See you next time, boys and ghouls.
So there you have it. That is my haunted island. I hope you enjoyed the tour. I do intend to do other themes eventually, and I do design them when I'm live on Twitch. So please feel free to follow me there. My next big Animal Crossing project is to actually make mini-movies. Yes, that's right, we're going into the movie business, y'all, and I would love for you to be a part of it. I hope to see you there. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.